Hello guys, welcome back to W&D Tech. Another video for a BeQuiet product, the Pure Rock Slim. This is the version 1, there is a version 2 out now, but this is version 1 and we're going to show you what this one can do right after this. Alright, so before we get into opening this box, we're going to go through some of the details you can see on the screen here if my hand's not in the, if my hand's not in the way. So we've got the dimensions of this cooler are 81.8 by 97 by 124.8 millimeters on the top there, and it weighs about 358, well it does weigh about 358 grams, made of aluminium, as you'll see in a moment when we open the box. Pretty much supports every type of CPU out there, apart from obviously AM4, not AM4, Threadripper, because that's a totally different type of socket anyways. As you can see, it supports all the Intels and pretty much all the AMDs up to AM4 as well. As you can see there, we've got 120 watt TDP on this one. Version 2 has 130 watt TDP.
That's right.
130 watt TDP, so they've increased the TDP by 10 on version 2. And we'll put links down to this one if we can find it still, and the version 2 in the links down below in the video description. Now, noise level we will be testing with our mics the best we can. That's about the only kind of testing we can do really. According to this, is at 50% is 13.1 dB, 75% 19.2, and at full load 100% 25.4. And we'll see how that equates to actual noise in a moment when we put this in the machine. We're going to do some benchmarks and compare this against the stock AMD cooler that we'll show you in just a moment. Moving on to the number of heat pipes, there are 3 heat pipes in total on this one that loop through the CPU block and then back up. I'll show you in a moment, and they are 6mm thick. The fan is a 92mm fan, 92 by 92 by 25. So that's how deep the fan is in that direction. We'll show you that again in a minute. It spins up to a maximum of 2000 RPM. But again, as above, we only get a maximum decibel limit there of 25.4 or thereabouts, I would imagine, at 2000 RPM. We have no way of measuring that noise at the moment, but we will look into doing that in future videos to see if that holds up. Airflow here is at its lowest speed is 35.14 CFMs, and at 100% is 59.38. The air pressure, I don't know much about these kind of things here, so what we're going to do, we're just going to show you the numbers there and you can make up and research that yourself. 1.67 is the air pressure there, and the input current is 0.32 amps. 4-pin PWM fan connector there, so you can control it via the motherboard, and a lifespan of up to 80,000 hours, which is quite a lot. All right, so now we've looked at the specs, let's get this bad boy out and well, see what it looks like, shall we? So this is not a sponsored video. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. This is a purchased cooler by Tony, or Professor. If you watch our streams on Twitch, you may have seen him on there, or the Hatter, as he's also known. And yeah, this is for his build, which we're going to be working on a little bit later, because he is going to be doing editing eventually for us, and he needs a bit of an upgrade to do that. All right, so this is a 92mm, 92 by 92 and 25mm deep. It's quite a deep fan actually. It looks deeper because it's a smaller fan, but it's actually about the same size as a standard 120mm fan in depth. So yeah, not too bad. Standard BeQuiet ridges you've got on the fins there as well, a nice little logo there. No noise dampening on the edges of the fan there, but it does obviously fit to a CPU cooler and it doesn't really need them, to be honest. It's going to be clamped in quite well, as you'll see it in a moment. There's a nice metal clamp that goes on there. Fairly long, probably, I don't know, 15 centimeter, maybe 15 centimeter cable there, which is plenty big enough to plug into the nearby CPU socket or whatever header you decide to put that on. Most boards you can pretty much put that on any one if you really want to. As we can see on the back there, hopefully you can see that, you've got DC 12 volt and a 0.3 amps and the max RPM there of 2000 RPM. Anyway, that's the fan, that's enough of the fan. Let's get on to the actual cooler. And here it is. It's got a thermal paste already on it. We'll get close-up cam down in a minute. And it looks pretty small, actually. Pretty small. Let's see if we can get a close-up shot of this. All right, so here we go. Here is the cooler and the fin stack there, and then the heat pipes. That's a really cute looking cooler. It's just so little. I mean, I know it's called the Pure Rock Slim, but it's so cute. I just want to hug it. But we can see through the fin stack there. They're quite close together, and obviously that's what helps get its 120 watt TDP. Now, don't forget, this is the Pure Rock Slim. There is a version 2, which we will link to below, and maybe eventually in the future we'll get a hold of one of those and compare the two together. But don't forget, there's only really a 10 watt TDP difference between the two, and all they've really changed is the plate on the bottom. We think they've made the fin stack maybe a little bit thicker. It still has the same heat pipes, and it still has the same fan from memory, so there's not much difference in it. So at the moment we've got the Intel 1155 socket, well basically the Intel brackets on there, but it does come with obviously the AM4 brackets as well. Let me grab those. And because we are going to be putting this on an AMD system, we will need to use this one, and I believe that slots in the middle, but we'll double check with that one. It looks like it kind of fits into those grooves there, in there like that, and it just clamps onto the clamps that you'll see on the motherboard, the AM4 socket there. So what we're going to do, we're going to get this all fitted, and we're going to run some tests and compare this one to the stock AMD cooler that comes with the AMD 3600, and just see which one is better. Now, this one should be a lot better, and we'll show you the comparison charts at the end, but I just love how shiny that looks. I know a lot of you will probably prefer the black versions, and I'm kind of with you on that. Black does look pretty cool, but it doesn't shine like this. I mean, look at that. Really, really neat. It's actually very, very... It's pure. It's in the name, you know. It's pure. It is what it is, and it does a job, and it does it well, as you will see in the test. So yeah, let's get this in the machine in a minute. Let's test the current one first and see what this is like. All right. So this is the cooler we're going to be comparing the Pure Rock Slim with. This is the bog standard AMD cooler that you get with it. This is the Wraith Spire cooler, and it's already in the machine and already running. So we're going to run some CPU benchmarks on this one. So let's get rid of that. So we've got Ryzen Master there showing the temps, and the limit of the CPU is 95. And we've also got Prime 95 ready to go as well. So this is obviously stress testing the CPU. This is not real world performance data. This is like, well, it's basically going to stress the CPU at the maximum. So the temps you see here, bearing in mind this is the ambient temperature we've got around now, so do take that into consideration when you are doing this for yours. If you want to do this, you can do this. Obviously, this is free software if you've got AMD, and Prime 95 is also free. We'll put links down below as well, so you can try this yourself if you're getting a new cooler. Always good to do a little benchmark to see if your new cooler is actually making any difference. Go away, fly. Where's it gone? Thank you. Okay. Flytastic. Right. So we're going to be using Prime 90. Yeah, that was a bad pun.
Pun?
Pun.
Ooh.
Buzz off. Anyway, right. We're going to be using Prime 95. So don't forget, we're kind of in a shed outside, so the temperature, and it's pretty warm in here, is about 35, 36 degrees Celsius. Now, we're working in Celsius because we live in the UK, and that's what we work with. If you want to convert that to Fahrenheit, you are more than welcome to. But we're working in Celsius for this video. So what we're going to do, get that started. Let's go torture test. And as it says here, we are testing to high power heat CPU stress, which is what we want. We want the CPU to be stressed out. We're going to do the same thing on the PureRock Slim as well, and just see what we get. So let's get going on that, shall we? I can already hear the fan ramping up. I don't know if you can hear that. Let me see if I can move the mic near. It's kind of an awkward position. Those fans on the front of this case are quite noisy. It's difficult to distinguish. Yeah, I don't know if the mic's going to pick those up. It might filter those out with noise filtering and stuff. But anyway, it's definitely audible. So as we move back to Ryzen Master here, you can already see the temps in just a few minutes that we've been running this Prime 95 test has gone up to 90 degrees and climbing 90 degrees centigrade there. The limit of the CPU is 95, well that's the limit that is set by AMD anyway. And yeah, you can see it's not particularly coping very well. Don't forget, this is stress testing the CPU, so in real world performance, you probably wouldn't get that high unless you were doing a similar thing. But like I said, you can test this yourself if you want to. Now we are in default overclock mode, which is out of the box as you install the software. We haven't changed anything on the motherboard. We're not using any overclocks at all, apart from what the CPU is doing itself, or the motherboard's doing itself. So nothing has been set there. You can see the CPU speed has gone down to 3.9 gig there. Well, that's the peak speed. We're currently at, yeah, you know, we are at about 3.9 on all cores at this moment in time. All right, so we've been sitting here for about 5 minutes now, and we haven't managed to get it any hotter than 93.97 there. It keeps fluctuating around a little bit, 98 there, but it's, we hit 94 there. So we're nearly on our limit basically, which is not good if you want to keep your CPU core speed up. As you can see there, it's dropped down to 3.885, which doesn't seem like a lot, but all cores have dropped, not just one. They've all dropped to 3.884, and you can see there it's still dropping, in fact, as it tries to compensate for, it's fluctuating, yeah, there we go. So it is gradually going up and down as it gradually slows the core speed down, the cores down, because it's doing all of them, to compensate for the temperature. As we can see, it's just gone up to 95, in fact. It's just peaked at 95. Now it won't show, oh no, it is showing more than 95. I didn't think it did. So yeah, we've hit the max limit of the CPU. So I think now is the time to get this BeQuiet cooler in there and see how this one does. All right, so now we're going to show you how simple it is to swap it from the Intel bracket, if we just tip that up a minute, onto the AM4 bracket, or the AMD bracket there. So for that, we're going to let Tony do this bit because this is his cooler, and we're going to show you how simple that is. Yeah, always remove you've got to remove the bottom bit, because obviously you can't get to the screws there, and we need to take these off for AMD. All right, so Tony's taken off the Intel brackets there, and we're pretty much done. So we do have to put on the AM4 bracket, which Tony will show you in just a moment. But what we're going to do first, I think, is put the cover back on the CPU paste so we don't get that smudged, because we need to tip it up the other way. Yep. So let's put the cover on. We are going to use the thermal paste that comes with it. It's more like a thermal pad actually, but we're going to use that because you want to see how it is out of the box. All right, so we flipped it over now, and now we're going to show you where the retaining bracket, well not the bracket, the clip that holds it down, the clamp is probably the better word for it, where that actually goes. So you basically slide it underneath, get a good angle here, and it kind of just sits on top. And then what we need to do is put that in the system. All right, so we're now mounting the fan, because we kind of need the fan on before we put it in. So this is kind of how we've done it. Bear in mind, this is the first time Tony's mounted a fan to the CPU cooler, but we can show you how easy that is, or how easy it should be to mount that on like that. Yep. And then do exactly the same thing on the other side, and that is basically how you mount the fan to the cooler. I just can't believe this is a 92mm fan on here. It just looks so diddy, but I've got a feeling it's going to be a lot better than the stock AMD cooler. So there we go, that is the Pure Rock Slim cooler, and doesn't that look pretty damn sexy? Look at that. Anyway, let's get this in the machine and run the test all over again. How this mechanism is compared to that. They should just do the clamp, bro. Even the better cooler uses just a clamp. This one has to use this one. And that tells me it doesn't make contact properly. And I had to use this to tighten it on properly. Shouldn't, yeah, it will move a little bit, but it shouldn't move too much. It's very pretty.
I can see why they've designed it like that now. Yeah, if it's really even a cone, like that.
Yeah. It's very cute though, I do like that. I'm supposed to twist it, otherwise what happens is... Well, at least the CPU didn't come out with it, so that's good.
Have a look at this.
I'm going to unplug it. I'm going to
before you
I'm just
carry
gonna...
on, just do this.
Oh my god, it's so cute!
Like a little sister for that, or a little
It's
brother.
so cute! Alright guys, so after a bit of fiddling with the Pure Rock Slim, we've encountered a bit of an issue, and now we know the reason why they've released a new version of the Pure Rock Slim is that it was really designed for Intel. It was designed for the Intel board. It looks like they had to last minute change it to make it work for AM4, because what we found, and we'll show you in some B-roll shot as I'm talking over this, that it doesn't quite sit right on the CPU itself. It's slightly to one side. Now, they seem to have fixed this issue in the Pure Rock Slim 2, as you'll see, we put the links down below. So I would recommend, if you're using AMD, then get the Pure Rock Slim 2, but if you're on Intel, you're going to be absolutely fine. It will mount to it, no problem, and work a treat. But it's a bit odd. It definitely looked like an afterthought, and it's I mean, we'll see. The proof is in the pudding, right? So we'll see what kind of temps we get, even though it's slightly offset. But we're going to do the same benchmark as we did before. We're going to do Prime 95 and stress the nuts out of this CPU and try and get it hot, see how hot it gets. Now, one thing to bear in mind, the ambient temperature of this room has changed. It's got a little bit cooler now, so it's hovering more around the 33.2-ish, something around that centigrade. So the temperature that you're going to see here will be slightly less than what we were getting earlier today, because it's obviously a lot cooler here now. So do take that into account as well, and we might even overlay the two temperatures as well. Okay, so same thing again, we're going to run the torture test on Prime 95, small FFDs, high power heat CPU stress as we did before. So let's kick that off. It's running on all cores. Let's go over to Ryzen Master and see how quickly that goes up. So we're already up to 78, 79 there, 80 degrees. Now we're going to let this run about the same amount of time. All right, so we've had this test going for about 5 minutes now, and as you can see there, 85 degrees. It is creeping up very, very slowly, but another thing we've noticed as well is if we go over here, CPU power is definitely higher than what we were getting before, and we can overlay the previous test on the screen as well. These two combined is definitely more than the 65 watt TDP that this thing will push, so it's definitely allowing it to push more power into the CPU, because it's keeping the temps like 10 degrees less than what we were getting before. And for a tiny cooler like this, that's pretty impressive, I feel. This cooler costs 16 or nearly 17 UK pounds. We'll put in the conversion for dollars as well, and some affiliate links to Amazon and stuff like that. But I would get the newer one if you're going AMD, and this one is perfectly fine for Intel. But if you're going to run this on AMD, you can see there 10 degrees difference already, and it's actually not increasing anymore now. We seem to have reached equilibrium, if you can call it that, and it doesn't seem to be going up any higher than that. CPU power, yeah, about 61 watts there, and 12 and a half watts on the SoC power there. So Yeah, we're going well over our TDP, these two combined.
So 3.
So it's able to push that extra power into the CPU to keep the clocks up a little more. As you can see there, look, we've got 3.972 now, whereas before we were getting 3.8. I'll overlay that on the screen to show the exact numbers, but we're definitely getting higher clock speeds on all cores, not just some of them. They're all the same. All cores are the same, which is really good. So as we mentioned earlier when we were reading the description of it right at the beginning of the video, this cooler will support up to 120 watt TDP, and we're around, what, 74 watts that this cooler has allowed the CPU to go up to, compared to the stock Ryzen cooler that comes with a 3600S. With a 3600, not the S, there is no S. So that in itself is pretty impressive for a £17 cooler. 17 quid. That's really cheap. If you just want something to get you by until you can afford to get a better one, then absolutely fine. But do bear in mind it doesn't quite sit right on the AM4 motherboards. They fixed that in version 2, and maybe we can get one in from BeQuiet and see if we can test that one out as well and see what the differences are between the two. That would be quite cool. So we might reach out to them to see if we can get hold of one. But if you're on Intel, it's going to be perfectly fine. It will sit on the CPU just fine. So there we go. I think we've shown everything that we need to show for the PureRock Slim version 1. And yeah, hopefully there was some useful information in this video. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.
Doesn't feel right when you haven't got somebody going, cut.
Cut! There you go.